In the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 1, 2, and 3, God Almighty promises Abraham that he will be a great nation. The prophecy of a great nation does not apply to the Jews, it only applies to Muslims. Let's put it this way: there are 2 billion Muslims around the world, but there are only 14 million Jews around the world, which is a great nation. Therefore, the prophecy of a great nation could only apply to Muslims and not to the Jews. Not only this, but in verse 3, God Almighty said, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Only Muslims bless Abraham 80 times a day during their daily prayers. The Jews don't do that. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verse 7, and chapter 13, verse 15, among other verses, God Almighty promised the descendants of Abraham the land. He said to Abraham, to your descendants I will give all this land. And in another verse, God Almighty said, to your descendants I will give this land from the Euphrates River to the Nile River. So God Almighty promised to give the land to all the descendants of Abraham. Well, who are the descendants of Abraham? Abraham's firstborn child was Ishmael. Ishmael is perceived to be the father of the Arabs because he migrated from Canaan to Arabia, and this is where he settled, this is where he lived, and this is where his descendants and offspring flourished. And several years later, Abraham had his second born child, Isaac. And Isaac lived in Canaan, and this is where he had his first child, Esau, and then his second child, Jacob, whose name is also Israel. And this is where Jacob had his 12 sons. And the 12 sons of Jacob are perceived to be the forefathers and the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel who came centuries later. And of course, we all know that one of these tribes, and to be exact, the tribe of Judah, is claimed to be the forefathers of and the source of modern day Jews, which is completely inaccurate. So the descendants of Abraham are the Arabs and the Canaanites. The Arabs through the bloodline of Ishmael, and the Canaanites and the Mesopotamians through the bloodline of Isaac. This is where he lived, and this is where he died. Remember now, Judaism only emerged in the 4th century BC. This means that between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and his sons, his 12 sons, there's close to 2,000 years before Judaism came to exist. Between 1,800 years to 2,000 years. And this is exactly why not one single Jewish rabbi or Jewish scholar or Jewish historian can ever claim that Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or his 12 sons were Jews. They assert and they confirm that none of them were Jews because Judaism only existed centuries after, 2,000 years after. And those who can be labeled as Jews are the ones who have received the Torah, the law of Moses, those who belong to the tribe of Judah. And this is where Judaism received its name. They hijacked the name Judah. Judah is the fourth son of Israel, the fourth son of Jacob. They used his name, and they derived the name Jodism. And the second opinion is that they are called Jews, or the religion of Jodism is called Jodism because the establishers of this religion, the followers of this religion, which emerged in the 4th century, lived in the region of Judah. Judah is just a small region in Palestine, half the size of Gaza today. Therefore, the true descendants of Abraham are not the Jews as they claim. The true descendants of Abraham are the Arabs through the bloodline of Ishmael, and the Canaanites and the Mesopotamians through the bloodline of Isaac. Thus, they are the ones worthy of inheriting the land. They are the ones who must fulfill God's promise. They're the ones who are deserving to God's promise, which He Almighty gave to Abraham.